Hey everyone, another random unprofessional product review. I've been using this thing to film a lot of my model builds as I'm working on the model parts, but unfortunately this had a handle and I torqued it too much to tighten this thing to the table and I sheared the bolt off. But this is a double-sided screw, right, to open and close it. And yeah, I think I had a pin here, but I lost it, so I'm just using a bolt. Anyhow, if you don't over torque it, it's a great product, but clearly it has its flaws because you want to clamp things really tight to a table, otherwise the arm is going to wobble and stuff like that. The arm hasn't had any problems at all, and it is a standard camera shoe thread, so I ended up putting this into my toolbox. But anyhow, I decided to get something new because, yeah, why not? So this says cantilever overhead mount. It was quite expensive, I think, but I think the quality is going to reflect that price. And nothing else out here. I assume the brand is LEAPLIGHT. And let's just see what's in this small box. This is probably the clamp. Yeah, alright. So, little baggie here. Some sort of tool to actually install that clamp. It's basically taking the place of a coin. That's what I'm assuming. Got a little keychain hole if you want to use this a lot. You know, if you're like a mobile vlogger or something, or you're a professional cameraman, maybe that'll be important. So it looks like this tool is probably for this. Yeah, okay, that's stainless. This is all sandblasted aluminum, and it's very high quality. That's the impression I get right now. So you can see this is a nice knurled anodized gray. You can see the machine marks here even. They used the machining as art. Look at that. That's very psychedelic. So that's some really clean machining. That's impressive, actually. Look at that. That's actually really cool. I've never seen anything like that. It reminds me of like Rizoma mirrors. All right, so pretty fast unwind and tightening winding. The thread is I guess, a standard thread size. There seems to be a brass bushing here, and so maybe that's almost like a lubricant against the stainless steel of the bolt. So that's pretty nice. You don't have to lube that. And then there's a rubber piece here inset. It actually has a texture as well. A cheaper company or less well thought out design might have that just smooth rubber. So that's a little traction. There's like probably an M6 bolt holding this thing on. This thing actually spins also. So that's actually good because once it clamps onto something, it's not creating extra friction as the screw tightens or loosens. Then you have that textured rubber here to protect the side of your table, and obviously a rubber pad here to protect the top or bottom, depending on which way you mount it. Then we have the range, 5 to 50 millimeters, and then I see this is a camera threaded insert. So if for some reason you strip out these two, or let me double check, hold on. Alright, so let's just look at the threaded camera insert. Check these aluminum ones. Yeah, it is for the camera thread. I kind of wish all cameras just went to a regular thread, like regular M6 by 1, not this funky, I think it's an English system or something. That's a regular camera thread. Then the stainless part, yeah, that's also a camera thread. But again, the nice thing about the stainless is if you strip the aluminum ones, it's always probably just best to use the stainless ones, so you don't even risk stripping those aluminum ones. There's another stainless here. Let's just make sure. Yep, that's camera thread. It's actually coming out. And then the last aluminum one, yes. So they're all tapped for camera threads. So 5 of them. All right. And then obviously, if you don't want that to come out, you could use this tool to tighten it. You might want to actually just put some light thread lock in there as well to keep that from coming out. Alright, anyhow, that's pretty high quality. I like it. It's nothing, no complaints. Okay. Oh, well, if it's important, let's just weigh this thing. If you're going to be traveling, checked luggage and all, right? They tax you for the weight. 310 grams is this mount. Alright, so the whole thing with the bottom is a little over 1.5 kilos. So it's pretty heavy, pretty robust. That might affect your airline luggage if you're going to travel with this thing. Let's surround the surface of the shoe. Let me hit focus. That's where the first pivot falls into play. The second pivot around there, and then the surface of the table and the overall length of it could be even longer than that. But obviously you can fold it up to be smaller than that. Inspection sticker maybe? Is this a little sticker? I'll pull out my toolbox. Nope, that's just a glossy piece of paper. Alright, oh, no knife needed. So we do, well now we do need a knife of course. Nice thick dense foam to keep it safe during shipping. Okay, more foam. Alright, so here's a camera shoe. Pretty big shoe. Alright, so another piece of paper. This is a waste of money. You know, why? Who's going to keep that, right? You don't need to do that. This is also a waste of money. I guess maybe someone can't figure that out. Maybe that's why that's there. Seems like a retail hang tag. This is nice. They give you a little plastic, no, rubbery piece to cover up the camera shoe thread. Again, that's not our standard threading, it seems. And that tool might come into play again. Let's see. Yeah, so if you want to really get your camera tight on there, that's what this thing is for. And it's only really this side. The other sides, I'm not sure. Maybe you could use them on other equipment. It's interesting the way they milled this. It's so lightened out here. Maybe it has a purpose. Also, these shapes might have a purpose later. So naturally, they give you a hex key so you can tighten that stuff. We'll have to figure out what those O-rings are for, but you get 3 of them. This also. Okay, so if you don't have that tool or a coin, you could use this. And if you lose this, let's see how big this is. This is a metric M4 hex tool. Alright, and what is going on in here? So we have a camera shoe bolt, and then we have a plastic and a metal washer to go onto said bolt, I assume. So let's put that on and keep the plastic last so it protects the surface that it screws into. I assume this is maybe a spare, although oddly it's not the same thing because it doesn't have the slot for the tool or the coin. So another thing I've noticed, besides the cool rubber pad here, is this cannot come out. I was thinking of replacing this with one of these easier handles, right? The handle just pops out and you don't need tools at all to tighten something. But it's not going to work because I don't see any hole. I don't think that hole, this slot end is bigger than that slot end. You could machine it out and get that thing out of there, but I'm going to just leave it the way it is because I'm not going to switch the stuff I put on here. And it's also a smaller head. Maybe you could actually put this to bolt some sort of accessory into this thing here. Yeah, we'll leave that the way that is. Alright, what else do we have in here? That's really well protected because it's very nice and almost looks like jewelry. Definitely high quality product here. Okay, what is this thing? So we have your standard camera thread again, and now we have a nice CNC'd aluminum handle with a small screw, or not. This again, oh, it's for the clamp. Alright, so this is actually for like a Picatinny rail on a gun. Luckily I play airsoft. Here's a rail for a gun. And there you go. It slides on, and then obviously you can tighten it and have a giant camera boom off the front end of your rifle, which I don't know why you would do that, but at least this thing without the arm, you could just put a GoPro right here. Although it's exceptionally large to be putting a camera on this thing that tall. Anyways, options, right? So that's one option. But the actual mount, the separate purchased here, also has a Picatinny rail here and here, right? So now that comes into play because you clamp this to your table. In my case, I'm going to have the table like this and have this on the bottom of the table. So then I'm going to maybe mount this here. Okay, so we're making some progress. And just like the clamp, all nice fine sandblasting and then nice fine anodization. It's very nice. I don't actually see any of the clear aluminum, the raw aluminum where they hung it in the anodization rack. Although I'm always wrong, so here's a little scratch, so that's unfortunate. Minus that issue, I would say it's actually quite nice. I think you could easily give this away as a gift, and whoever gets it would actually be impressed. This is not a cheap product. Alright, the LEAPLIGHT thing here is rastered in here, laser etched, so pretty nice logo. And here we have a nice big aluminum milled handle, and you'll see to lock it clockwise, but it's actually getting tighter. It's weird. It just got tighter. Unless I'm crazy, which I always am. Yeah, that's weird. It feels like it's not... Well, you know what? It does move, though. There might be a stop. You know, I was expecting it to unthread itself, but I think what it is there's probably something that's keeping this bolt from coming out. Let's see if there's any indication. It's hidden underneath this fantastic machining again. Ooh, look at that. Anyhow, it's probably a separate piece. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not. So, now, since I can move this, let's go clockwise, like it says, to lock it. Actually, I want to open it a little bit, see if I can move it. Alright, so that actually got tight. Alright, that... Alright, so you can tighten that for sure. And nothing... This is not going to collapse on you. There's no wobbliness whatsoever. And what's nice is you can't lose this thing, because it's trapped somewhere in there. Alright, that's very cool. The end of it is even covered up with this plastic insert. I'm assuming there's some hex head in there, but I'm not going to remove it. And behind here we have a stainless steel thing, and I think behind that we have a brass washer. Again, maybe to prevent some sort of galvanic corrosion, or I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a better, slicker material than steel because it knows that this thing wants to move. But then when you clamp it down, it's metal, so it's not going to wear out. I'm not an engineer. Leave your theories if you want. And what do we have? We have 2 screws here, but I probably don't want to undo them. But if you needed to take this apart for some reason, that's what that thing is for. Yeah, so you can remove this arm from that. And same thing here. You could basically take this joint away from the 2 arms. So I suppose if you bought a second one, maybe... No, I was wondering if you could maybe bolt another set to this, but you'll see the end here. It doesn't have the interface of this. This is basically like a 50-50 left-right split, but here it's centered, so I don't think that's going to work, nor would it work down here. That's unfortunate. That's a lost opportunity. They could have maybe designed this interface to be exactly 50-50. Then you can make an extension, like a 4-arm, 4-link arm, because I do think it's strong enough, being solid aluminum. Anyhow, you got 4 bolts holding the lower part of this arm. Stainless screws, or nuts, bolts, stainless bolts. I'm losing my mind, sorry. Same type of locking mechanism here. So, loose. Yep. Tight. Yeah, okay. Very good. Then again, no more aluminum. And it's nice that they laser etched all this stuff to say what direction it tightens it. And all these handles are milled aluminum. They're not plastic, right? So these are going to be near impossible to break. I think, just like that very first one I showed, the thing that's going to break is the actual thing the handle is attached to, not the actual handle. Alright, and then it's nice that they covered those heads up, because I assume they look like that. Although I'm perfectly okay with that. But they're going for high class here. I have no affiliation. I bought this with my own money. It's just I appreciate good design, which is why most of my reviews are negative. There's a lot of poorly designed products out there. Okay, there's a hex head down there if you want to... Oh, this is a different size, though. I can't tell you what size you'd need to get into that. And I'm not even sure why you would want to undo that, because it's around here. I don't know. I don't know why you would have a bolt up in there. Right? Is it creating... Because all the tension is over on the side, right? This thing is the tension. That's a mystery. Or this interfaces, this tightens down on that. But why would it do that? Leave a comment if you have a theory. This I understand, because it's going to go around something and that screw is going to tighten against it. But this thing tightening against that, I have no idea. And then again, I see brass. So something about brass must be good. Alright? Neither of these material materials will rust. Only the stainless bolts would eventually rust. Oh, that's what the 3 extra O-rings are for. So you have the ball end mount here. So if you wanted to, I think will this come apart, I wonder? Let's see. Well, yes, I think it probably would eventually. Again, metal handle. There's a small bolt holding this together. There's even a part number for this. So it's got what I assume is a stainless spring on a stainless shaft. And then, oh, this is actually even a bearing. That's impressive. That's a bearing inside of a brass race. That's crazy. I would never... I'm not a professional photographer. Maybe this is common in the camera world, but not to someone that collects die-cast cars and resin cars. Yeah, alright. Well, anyways, I can see some grease on there, so that's a nice touch. They could have easily skipped as well. And so here you got the... well, will this tool interface this? Yes, this tool will take the ball off of this piece if you want it to. And then, yeah, you have these things to create extra grip as the aluminum clamps down on the ball. And so, yeah, this being rubbery, you know, if you twist this while it's actually tight, you're going to shear that and break it very easily. Alright, this looks like a Picatinny rail. No, it's bigger. It's wider than that. Where's my gun rail? Yeah, so I'm not sure what this is supposed to clamp around. Right? Oh, look at this. This is well designed too. It's not just the piece with the shaft. It's a piece with 2 alignment parts milled into this, and then the screw shaft. So, yeah, that's impressive. No, this doesn't even have the separate piece. I'm just used to Picatinny rails type systems where this doesn't have the extra alignment things, and this just dangles and rotates, and it's very annoying. But this is so easy. You don't have to worry about this, you know, rotating out in the wrong area. Pretty fast engagement as well, right? Nice knurling, you know, a couple of grooves, so you get a lot of traction on that knob, and then it's covered up again with a piece of plastic. And again, there's some brass in there, probably like a ball bearing kind of washer. Some sort of locator pin in stainless, and then yeah, alright. One other thing I noticed in the shoe, that pin. The reason why this pin is here, and those recesses are there, is to keep the camera or whatever you have clamped onto this from falling out accidentally. You see, if you undo it, it gets caught by the pin. So it's tight, undo it, right? You're not going to just drop an expensive camera or whatever you mount to this thing. So it's actually pretty smart. I've never seen a mount like that. And then you have laser etched graduations in millimeters, 10 millimeters either direction. Some lightning machining there. Alright, that's very cool, even though I have no idea what that would be used for. Oh, there's the answer. So you gotta undo it. You gotta get this. Oh no, I was thinking maybe that engages this, but I don't think it does. Because look at the location, right? Unless you specifically want it this way, maybe. Let's try it. No, it will not. It's not gonna work that way. So I think it's probably best to just do it this way. And now you can clamp the shoe into this thing, and then just leave this on your camera all the time, or whatever else takes that thread. Very, very impressive. Strange to be impressed by a camera mount. This totally explains why it was pricey. I'm never gonna have to buy another camera mount again. Okay, let's see. Does this undo? Because no. Well, I was thinking that's a separate piece, but I think that's actually one piece of metal right there. Just stepped down for some reason. I want to undo this for now. It doesn't have these little notches. I'm not sure why though. So looking at this, yeah, there's a little spring here, you know, and can this get totally undone? Ah, see, this is a problem, right? This is what I was expecting on the last part, right? That comes out, this thing gets all out of whack, and then you got to realign it, wasting time, which is not so great. But I guess it clears it so much, there's no reason to undo that much, right? You just need to clear probably like only that much, right? And it'll come loose. Anyhow, this roundness, I assume, goes up in here. Oh, interesting. It's actually quite loose. Looking at this, so this thing engages this lower, smaller surface, not the bottom. Oh, wait a second. No, for a second I thought maybe that threads into that thing, but that's a hex up in there. All right, so let's see about this. Let's tighten this. Actually, I want to see if that thing is sharp. Let me get a flashlight. Well, I don't know if you can. It's so hard to focus. If I had 3 or 4 hands, these reviews would be easier. I don't think it's sharp. I think it's actually milled. I don't think it's like a regular bolt. I think this is actually CNC machine specific for this task. You can see the face of that thing is actually rounded off. And the reason why that's important is if it was a normal bolt, it would scratch the heck out of this thing if you twisted it. See, this is more normal looking, right? You see that little ridge where the threads end? That tends to gouge aluminum, which is much softer, obviously, than a steel bolt. So it's still going to gouge it up. It's still going to take off some anodization, but it's not going to gouge up the metal a great deal, I don't think. All right, so yeah, it's probably maybe not. Oh, as I discover things. Yeah, so that's good. This can be super tight because the whole top part moves with it. Then maybe this is what keeps it from spinning. Aha, so that's very smart, wicked smart. Okay, very cool, very, very cool, right? So, in fact, the only way this piece is going to get marred up is if you take this apart and put it together repeatedly. But me, I'm just going to probably put on a table once. But anyways, it's such a thick piece of aluminum down here, you know, you could do this hundreds of times, thousands of times probably before it wears down, right? So that's very well done. All right, so what's also cool, you see all these holes? These are threaded for camera stuff as well, right? So let's see. So now you can mount, oh wait, am I wrong? No, I am correct for the first time. So you can mount other arms, other devices that have camera shoe threads. In fact, I'm going to probably still use this because I do like it. And then I'm just going to thread it into the side of this thing later so I can have 2 things hanging off of this thing, right? Yeah, very cool. So you have what, seven holes on the lower arm, 4 on the top, and obviously on both sides. I assume there must be something with extra pins to keep it from spinning, but I don't have anything like that. Yeah, maybe in the camera accessory world they have anti-spin devices. And so even on this surface, same amount of holes, very cool. And up here as well. I suppose you could even run regular nuts and bolts through these slots, and then you can shift things up and down as necessary. It might be important to know what size bolts you can put through there. So you can put an M6 bolt through these slots. But again, friction, just like down in here, you're going to scratch off the anodization if you do that a lot. Alright, let's do a test setup here. I have a big kitchen table I use as my work table. So this thing here. There. Even the twisting, it doesn't want to shift because that aluminum part, spins on this axis. So it all it did was clamp tight. It didn't want to torque the thing out. Unfortunately, I don't have enough space here, so there's a little bit of a gap. But looking at how strong that is, I don't think it's going to be an issue. All right, so next thing is to use this Picatinny thing. Interesting though, here you'll notice the handle, it actually collides. Let me change the angle here. This could be an issue. It's colliding with this aluminum here. Unless, once you get past that point, actually it's not colliding anymore. So what it is once it tightened, it actually raised itself up. You can see literally a gap underneath it. So it's not an issue. It's just when you're starting it off. So really, it's only like a quarter turn, right? And you can take it on and off. You don't have to sit there and screw it in a lot. Just a quarter turn, and you're tight. You're ready to go. So let's move this up a little more. Then we have this thing here. You could line that up if you want. So that's tightening there. And then this thing, you can leave it loose to spin that. And then let's see, the camera shoe. So I'm going to transfer this to my little cheap phone clamp. Although it does say I like this brand, Ulanzi. They have good stuff. Unfortunately, this thing isn't one of the pop-out handles where you don't need tools at all. So it would have been cool if it came with one of those. So that's super tight. Work with me here. Alright, so my camera phone is snugly in the shoe, and this thing is in here. Let me bring this arm down. Okay. So loosen this, get it around the ball. Come on. Clamp the balls. That's a joke in the making. Alright, so that is clamped around the ball. And again, you don't need to have much effort spinning this. Not even a quarter turn, and that thing is locked in place. I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't take much to tighten that. Alright. And then, you know, I can add this thing. Why not? Yep. So very cool. Tighten it. Nope, now the bottom one. Okay. There. That's quite tight. Obviously, if you put your whole body's weight into it, you're going to break something. You'll probably break the arm maybe before the joint. Or maybe that's why there's brass in there, so you don't break the arm. But anyways, it's quite impressive. It's very solid, right? Very cool. All right, I guess that's it. I don't use DSLRs. I'm literally just going to put my mobile phone on that thing. So this is kind of overkill, but I know I never have to buy another mount again. Thanks for watching. See you in the next random product review.